You know that feeling, right? When you're in a political argument with someone you love, someone you respect, and it feels like you're not just on different pages, you're in completely different universes. It's frustrating, it's exhausting, and honestly, it's a little heartbreaking. So today, we're going to dive into why that happens. We're going to look past the usual debates to uncover the hidden psychological, social, and even historical forces that are pulling us apart. And it all starts with a really simple but profound idea. I mean, this line from Harper Lee is just so simple, isn't it? It gets at a basic truth we all kind of want to believe. That deep down, beneath all the noise and all the labels, we're all just people. We're all just folks trying to figure things out. It's a beautiful thought. But it also brings up a really tough question.
Because if we really are all just folks, then how on earth can we look at the exact same set of facts, the same events, the same political leaders, and walk away with completely opposite takeaways? How can two good, smart, reasonable people end up worlds apart? It's a puzzle, for sure, and it goes way beyond a simple disagreement.
To make this real, let's start with a story. It's a scene that I'm sure a lot of us can relate to, especially after the last few years. It's a story about a family, a disagreement, and, of course, a social media post that just blew everything up. So the author of our source material here found himself in this exact spot. He's a liberal college professor, and his brother, an electrician and a big-time Trump supporter. Now, these guys grew up in the same house, under the same roof, but today they might as well live on different planets. When his brother posted something supporting Trump online, the author just couldn't let it go. And the argument that followed, well, it was heated, it got personal, and it went absolutely nowhere. It was just two brothers, looking at the same world and seeing completely different things.
So why? Why does this happen? Well, to find the first piece of the puzzle, we have to look inside our own heads. It turns out, our brains have this powerful and mostly unconscious defense mechanism quietly working in the background all the time.
It's called the psychological immune system. And get this, its main job isn't to find the objective, capital T, truth. Its job is to make us feel okay. It's there to protect our core identity, that fundamental belief that I am a good, smart, reasonable person. So whenever any information comes along that threatens that identity, this system just kicks right into overdrive.
Okay, let's take politics out of it for a second, just to see how this works. Think about a die-hard sports fan. Their team just lost the big game. You'd expect them to be totally crushed for days, right? But what actually happens? Well, their psychological immune system jumps in. They start blaming the refs for a bad call. They focus on that one unlucky play, and pretty soon they're already talking about next season. They find reasons, excuses really, to feel better and protect their identity as a fan of a good team.
And that is the absolute key right there. When our identities are on the line, and it doesn't matter if it's as a sports fan or a member of a political party, our ability to reason stops being a searchlight, looking for truth. Instead, it becomes a shield used to defend our sense of self. It's all about protecting that psychological bottom line. I am a good person and my team is full of good people.
All right, so that's the psychological layer. But what about the ideas themselves? I mean, we all assume that people vote based on some kind of consistent political philosophy, that liberals and conservatives have these coherent worldviews that they stick to. Well, some pretty groundbreaking research suggests that's not really how it works at all.
Way back in 1964, a political scientist named Converse ran this landmark study. He did something really simple. He just asked voters to define the words liberal and conservative. And the results were wild. Only about 17% of people could give a reasonably correct explanation. The vast majority either had no idea, or they gave answers that were super vague or just plain wrong. Converse concluded that most of us are, in his words, innocent of ideology.
And this leads to this mind-bending reversal of how we think politics works. See, what's stable isn't our opinion on taxes or healthcare. No, what's stable is our loyalty to our team, our party. Our actual beliefs on the issues are surprisingly flexible, and we often just pick and choose them to justify staying on our team. So we don't start with principles and then pick a party. We start with a party, and then we go find the principles that fit.
Okay, now for the deepest and I think most astonishing layer of our divide. If our political loyalties are really that deep, where do they even come from in the first place? Well, the answer is just incredible. It involves ancient geology, 19th century agriculture, and a map that Abraham Lincoln himself kept by his side during the Civil War. You're not going to believe this story. Millions and millions of years ago, the shells of tiny sea creatures created this huge chalk deposit right under what is now the American South.
Turns out that chalk made the soil incredibly fertile, perfect for growing cotton. That cotton boom created an economy that was completely dependent on the brutal institution of slavery, and the social and political patterns that were set back then, well, they're still with us today.
In fact, the echo of that history is so powerful, so persistent, that a map from 1860, a map that Abraham Lincoln used to plan his strategy during the Civil War, can actually predict political behavior in the American South, right now, today.
So this is it. This is Lincoln's map. It was basically a new piece of technology at the time, a data visualization showing the concentration of enslaved people in every single southern county. The darker the shading, the higher the percentage of the population was enslaved. For Lincoln, this was a critical strategic tool for understanding which areas were most deeply committed to the Confederacy.
So researchers took this map from 1860 and laid it over modern data. And what they found is just stunning. There's a direct line. The counties that had higher concentrations of slavery back then are the very same counties that later had more lynchings. And today, those same places have more segregation, less economic opportunity for black residents, and, yep, significantly higher support for the Republican Party among white voters. The pattern is just undeniable.
And this brings us right back to where we started. Living inside this long shadow of history basically forces people to interpret modern inequality in different ways, all to protect their psychological bottom line. For black residents, the inequality they experience is clear evidence of a system that's been shaped by history and discrimination. But for many white residents in those same places, their psychological immune system pushes them to a totally different conclusion, that the inequality must be due to the personal failings of individuals, not the system itself.
So, what does all this mean for us, for our arguments over the dinner table or on social media? It means we need to stop looking at the reasons people give and start getting curious about the causes of those reasons.
At the end of the day, our political fights aren't really about facts and figures and logic. They're driven by these powerful, often invisible forces. First, there's our psychological need to see ourselves as good and right. Second, there's our deep, instinctual loyalty to our groups. And third, there's the heavy weight of history and geography, the circumstances we were born into, long before we ever had a single political thought.
So what can we possibly do about it? Well, understanding these forces actually gives us a path forward. First, ask questions instead of making assumptions. We tend to exaggerate how different we really are. Second, try to see the individual, not the label. Focus on their personal experience, because that's where empathy is built, not in statistics. And finally, listen to understand, not to win. The goal isn't to convert someone, it's just to connect. When you stop defending your own identity and start trying to understand theirs, the whole game can change.
I know this stuff can feel really overwhelming. Our divisions feel so huge, so important. But sometimes it helps to just zoom out. This quote from Carl Sagan gives some humbling perspective. All our passionate hatreds, all our intense arguments, they're all just happening on this tiny stage in a massive cosmic arena. It doesn't make our problems go away, of course, but it might just help us remember that underneath it all, we are, after all, just folks.
All right, that's a wrap on today's summary. Thanks for listening. If this book summary sparked your curiosity or gave you new insights, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you won't miss our next summary. Keep reading, keep growing, and see you in the next one.